So firstly, thank you. The way this works for me is that I get to give you 1 hour, but in return, I get all of your hours back. So I actually leave the room with more than you guys do. And you've had to pay to attend this little event. So firstly, kudos to Nico and the guys for what you're doing. I think is a really cool idea. I think Marketing Fridays, there should be more of these things. And there should be hundreds and hundreds of young South Africans who want to get into the marketing space. So actually, these forums are very powerful in the long term. You won't see short-term results, but you will see long-term results, right? The most difficult thing in a professional career is to start your own thing. And it's incredibly difficult in marketing. It's growing as a difficult thing to do. So when young people do take on the challenge, I'm always pleased to see you do it. But I have to tell you, you're going to have to be spectacularly brave. You're going to have to be determined more than ever before, more than anything you've ever done. This is going to be the single most difficult thing you'll do. But if you get it right, it's the single most rewarding thing you'll do. Okay, but please go into it with the mindset not of the entrepreneur magazines, be your own boss, be this, because it ain't any of that stuff, right? It's spectacularly hard work and it's a grind. But when you get it right, it's glorious. Okay, so go about it with that mindset. The way I'm going to try and do this, I am going to refer to some notes. I don't have my glasses on, so I actually have to be able to see what I'm about to say next. And I try and do these things as unstructured as I possibly can. I'm going to try and set up a premise that I believe is right, and I'll give you some background as to why I believe it. And hopefully by the time we're done, I'll give you you'll leave here with a sense of empowerment that actually I have what it takes to do this, or you'll leave with going, I don't think I do have that stuff. I might need to find a different path. Okay, so things like purpose-driven brands. You're going to hear a lot about purpose in South African marketing or global marketing context. That's actually part of what we're about to talk about today. I use different words. I'm not a big fan of the word purpose. What's your purpose? Do you know your purpose? How old are you guys? 25? 30? 25, 30, you don't even know what your purpose is yet, right? But you've got time to find it out, and that's actually the thing for me that's most important. So I'm going to talk a lot about opportunity, but opportunity is a strange thing, right? Opportunities sounds like a positive, big, glorious thing dressed up in pretty lights with, it sounds like a party. Opportunities are hard. They're difficult to find. They're hard to articulate. But when you do find them, and you can grab them and execute against them, when you come out the other side of that opportunity, the scale is exponential on the other side. But I don't want to trick you into believing that this industry is an easy, simple place and it's a fun journey, right? You talked about stress of marketing retail businesses, right? You're under pressure. This is a hard, grinding, difficult industry, but it's filled with the most creative, energetic, free-thinking, motivated people. Imagine working in a dentist practice or an accounting firm. Now that's probably disrespectful to both dentists and accountants, but biggest thing for me is I never do the same thing twice. Every single day is different. But every single day I've got to deal with something different. So imagine that pleasure of going to work today and it's exactly the same as yesterday. I just repeat. How easy would that be? Except guess where you'll be further down the line. You'll still be doing the same thing you did yesterday. And that's actually the exponential opportunity that exists in our industry and in the hands of young people like yourselves. So I also don't like to start presentations with questions, but fortunately Nico's already done that for me, so now I've got a sense of who you guys are, so I guess I better tell you who I am. Also for me, and this might sound a little dramatic, but for me the year 2020 seems like an iconic year. When you write it down, it looks cool, right? It's got a
Vision 20.
yeah, it's got it pops a little bit, right? And it also seems like if you were watching a movie 30 years ago, the kind of future bound, like opportunities in the future were going to manifest in year 2020. So I'm kind of going, fuck it, let's make 2020 the year that we manifest this thing. So there's a hell of a lot of negative sentiment around what goes on in South Africa and the state of the economy and things, but half of that stuff is mindset. It's about how you approach the challenge and how you work through it. So the 2020 for me, I'm kind of hinging my kind of planning on it's going to be a change year for us in South Africa, and it's going to be a change year of opportunity. So I'm going about this with a very different attitude. But just to give you some perspective, we operate and live in a marketing environment where a chef is a global television star, right? You've all watched that horrible show. I've seen too many of it. A racist, sexist, failed businessman is the president of the most powerful country in the world. okay? A disabled man who cannot speak won the biggest talent show in the world by telling jokes, right? I'm sure you saw the America's Got Talent, I think it was the Britain's Got Talent show last year. And a 21-year-old woman is a billionaire from running a cosmetics business where she was on television. You just filmed her in her home. Okay, that's the marketing world you have to go and live in. It's not the one I lived in. I lived in a very simple straight line world where if you did this, this happened, this happened, this happened. You did a TV commercial, you put it on television, you put it in a print campaign, you ran it on radio, you waited, everybody looked for that TV commercial, they liked what you showed them, they went to their retail store and they bought what you told them to buy. That shit doesn't work anymore, right? So an old guy like me is looking around going, what the hell is going on? And that's why I like doing talks with you guys. Because what I just articulated, you see and understand. I look at that and go, I don't know where the hell to go. Okay. So part of the reason I do these talks is that I've got 20 or 30 years of experience in building an agency and running a company and building brands. What I'm lacking is an understanding of that context I just described. You guys have it. You might not be able to write it down, your purpose, your drive. You might not know why you're under stress. You might not know why you've chosen to start your business, but you feel it. You might know why you know something better than the next guy. That example I gave you of the 3 different genres of Damon Albarn playing different genres, he's got it. He knows how his product sits in the world. Okay. And that's actually what I think we should be doing. So I think there's some crazy opportunities to do some stuff. But I guess I can't really give you context unless you know what I've done and who I am, and then I can position what I've done. So my business is called WorxGroup. As you can see in the corner, I have a group of eclectic people who work for me, very talented people. Most of us are shy and reserved. We don't like being in front of the camera. We don't like being the show. We're very good behind the scenes. And actually, we thrive there. We bring things together and put a show out there. So you asked me earlier if we're in experiential or activations and things. That's part of what we do, but we do a number of other things as well. So my business is, I don't know, 15 or 16 years old. I started it with my wife. My wife is my business partner. Another interesting thing, how many of you could work with your partner every single day? So fortunately, my wife and I have very complementary skills, and we then added into our business. My younger brother's also a business partner of mine and a really good friend. So I'm actually lucky enough to go to work and do the things I really enjoy with the most favorite people on the planet, and we get to do these cool things together. So it's hard to describe it as work. It is work, super stressful, and it comes with all the challenges, but it's also incredibly fun. So we describe ourselves as a leading event and marketing services agency in growth mode and future bound. Okay, what does all that mean? So leading, we like to think we know a little bit more about how you build businesses like this, or how you use the eventing industry to succeed. We like to lead our clients. We don't try and take instruction. We try and guide them as to what we think we should be doing, and we reach out to people like you guys to understand the market. And we do believe we have a take on how things should be done that maybe other agencies don't. We're events and marketing, so that's our core. We put events on the stage. We create events for value, but it's for brands. It's a working tool. It's not parties. It's not fun. It's not festivals. It's business, okay? And then we're in growth mode, so we're constantly looking for what's the next generation of project, how we build these businesses for our clients. And then finally, we're future bound. We're looking at what this thing looks like in 5 to 10 years, and we're bringing it forward to today so we can begin to build those things into our clients' businesses. And we've been doing it for quite some time, 20 years, okay. I'm also lucky enough to have, you probably know him as Mpo Pops, the South African comedian. He's a business partner of ours. He joined us late last year, and in addition to strengthening my empowerment credentials, what he really brings to me is, if you've ever watched him on stage, he knows how to connect to people. A comedian lives or dies on that, like first 30 seconds, right? When they're in front of you, if they haven't got you like this, the next hour is going to be a long, hard session. And he is spectacularly talented at being able to stand in a room, look at the crowd and go, I've got this. And he quickly connects to people, all sorts of different people. Imagine talking to a room full of bankers, from like 55-year-old white guys to 25-year-old young black women. He's got to be able to cross this entire spectrum and connect to everybody on all their platforms. How many of you are trying to do social media planning, where you've got to talk to so many different categories or so many different specializations? and he just gets it like this, right? So he's the counterbalance to me, and that I've got all this experience in how to execute, and he's got this connection to how the community connects together. So we fit quite nicely together. And then the last thing I'll pitch to you is our catchphrase or our slogan is opportunity everywhere. And that's really how we function in our business. We look for where the opportunity is. Many people look for where the challenge is and how do you solve the challenge. I think that's a kind of negative mindset, and there are many businesses that should be doing that. How to make things quicker, faster, simpler, frictionless, that stuff's cool. We try and look where the opportunity is, and opportunities are exactly that, right? They're everywhere. Where are you going to put this project? How are you going to help this client move into things? So we do try and widen our view as to where we look and what we look for. So that's that. Then, whoops, jumping a slide too far. Me. It's a rather dodgy photo of me. I hate photos. Told you so now, I hate photos. And that photo was actually taken of me just after I'd finished riding the Absa Cape Epic. So I weighed about 74 kilograms. I hadn't eaten for a month. I was super fit. Now I'm back to my fat, round self. So me, I'm 49 years old. I'm white. I'm male. And I'm rapidly becoming redundant. If you look around the room, there are not many of us here. But I'm pretty aware of how my marketing world works. I'm the co-founder of my business. I'm the CEO, so I take CEO executive responsibility. But actually, I describe myself as an event entrepreneur. I like eventing. I understand the business of eventing, and I'm constantly looking for how I can be an entrepreneurial guy in that space. I do it within my agency. I've done it in other areas. I've started and sold a corporate poker business. I've started and sold a corporate coffee business. I've done a couple of those kinds of things. But I'm now doubling down in my agency business, and I'm trying to exponentially grow it, over the next couple of years. I'll tell you a quick story. I was in New York this time last July, and Umpord hooked me up with some tickets to go and watch Trevor Noah to film his daily show, right? So I was in the crowd, I was in the audience. And they send out this comedian who warms up the crowds, right? Make sure you're all pumped and ready for him when he comes out on stage. Firstly, I think Trevor Noah is a genius. If you don't watch his stuff, you should. If you're watching Gary Vaynerchuk, you should be watching Trevor Noah, right? Trevor Noah is the modern contemporary version of Gary Vaynerchuk without the bullshit. Okay. I love Gary Vaynerchuk, by the way. You need to edit some of this stuff. Okay. So I get final say on what gets published. So I love what Gary Vaynerchuk does, but I think if you study Trevor Noah, you'll get a much better contemporary understanding of how to build a brand and how to market yourself. Anyway, I was in the crowd. I'm super enthusiastic, super proud South African. That's my boy. Yes, I'm here. And this comedian came out and he warmed up the crowd and he was saying, and where are you from? And where are you from? And I'm from Canada and I'm from New York, because it's filmed in New York. And then he went, and I'm not trying to be inconspicuous because I don't like it. And he said, and you, where are you from? And I said, hey, I'm South African. I'm from Johannesburg. I'm from Africa. And he said, oh, he looked at me like, you don't look like you're from Africa. But okay, let's play with this. What's your name? So I said, my name's John Paul. And he went, oh, fuck off, that's not an African name. And he like dissed me. Poof. And then he went around the room and he went to the back of the room and he said, and you, where are you from? And it was this big, beautiful African woman. And she stood up and she said, I'm from Ghana. And she had this dramatic Ghanaian name, right? Which I can't repeat. And he turned to me and he said, that's fucking African. And I left there going, okay, I'm proud. But geez, I've just had like my South Africanness stripped from me. I've just been told I'm not where I'm from and I don't belong and I'm not that guy. And it took me a while to kind of go, oh, hang on a second. It's actually okay for me to be that guy. But I needed to, when I came back, this was about a year ago, and I thought, actually I am that guy because I'm not completely connected to things. I'm not as aware of what my community and my marketplace and the people I do business with, where they are, where they're at, what they do, how they do, what they see. So actually, although it was at the time, it was quite a negative experience for me, it's turned out to be quite a positive one. And as a result, I then pursued Pops to join me, and I'm now beginning to understand more and more how my business connects into the world that is the one that I operate in. So I think I own my space a little bit more than I ever did before, and I'm a little bit more aware of how this works. So when I said I come to learn, I do come to learn. What I get is far more than what I give. So here's my topic. It's changed. Originally, well, let me step into this thing. What was the title that you probably agreed to on the invitation? It was how to stand your ground when the marketing terms are shifting under your feet. And I don't know if you feel like I do, but I feel like every time I step forward with an idea, the thing's moved. Now I've got to change, and it's moved and it's moved and it's moved, and my customers are going, where's this thing going? Help me work out what to do next. Guarantee the outcome, because I don't have the proper budgets to spend. I need to know that this thing will absolutely work. You've got to do it in half the amount of time, and you've got to do it with half the budget. But you have to guarantee it. Can any of you guarantee that? Those are running your own agencies or trying to do a side hustle, and nothing guaranteed, right? So the more I looked at how things were moving, the more I realized nothing's changing. Everything's actually the same. It's always been changing. The one thing that's consistent is your view, and it's always going to change. So how you proceed through that change is actually going to be the difficult thing. So I do believe that it is, in fact, the best time ever to be a marketer. That example I gave you of who's leading and who's winning, or the example I gave you of Trevor Noah as a marketing genius, not just a comedian, is the truth. But I also believe it's the toughest time ever to be going into this industry. And you better be going into it understanding how tough it's going to be and understanding what you've got to do to build your future careers. Okay. This is a fun industry, right? You hook up with all sorts of cool, interesting people. But to succeed in this industry is going to take much, much more than that. And that's really what I want to talk to you guys about today. Okay. So why is this the best time ever to be in this industry? You've got global access to information. We were talking just now that information is free. You can get learnings about anything and everything on the internet for literally for free. You can listen to Gary Vaynerchuk 12 hours a day, okay, for free. Right? I happen to like him too, by the way. You've got multiple channels, multiple platforms. You've got data sets. You've got to be swift and deliberate. It's all the stuff is just awesome. You've now got this massive power base that you can put your work into the world. Wasn't like that when I was around. We had a very narrow channel of things we could do, and you had to do it in a very sequential way. Now you guys can go anywhere. You can do anything. You can be / / anything you choose to be. But it's harder to get traction. It's harder to get results. It's because it's so competitive. It's so broad. It's so demanding. Okay. Marketing is becoming increasingly complex, increasingly sophisticated, increasingly demanding, increasingly data-driven, increasingly under pressure. If you haven't seen that and you aren't working out how to index into that, you need to, because that's what's going to be the change of the game. Okay? Consider the difference between choosing to be an accountant or a lawyer or choosing to act as a marketer. The journey in those other professions is much more stringent to get into, right? You've got to go through a very deliberate, detailed journey to get into those industries. Then you've got to go through an internship type environment where you've got to qualify, and only then down the line do you actually begin to put your skills to work. Where marketing can be a short journey, right? Marketing can be, I've got a camera and an iPhone and I've got a social media account. I'm a marketer. I'm up and running. But you're not. Because you've still got such a long journey to go before you actually become genuinely influential in what you're doing. Where by the time that lawyer starts to really argue a case in court, they've got 10 years of skill set, experience, resource. So be realistic. What you're going to be able to do in 15 minutes versus what that guy's going to take to do in 15 years. That's why lawyers have the status that they have, and marketers maybe don't. What's happening though is that marketing's being pulled to be at the same seat as those senior executives are. And that's actually where the pressure is coming from. And it's cascading down into the job roles that you fulfill today. The pressure you feel for at the retail marketing position is not because retail marketing is hard. It's because executives who run those businesses need results. They're pushing, and guess where you get results? You don't get results from operations, you don't get results. Revenue is the top line on the financial statement for a reason, right? It all starts there. And who takes charge of creating revenue? We do. What happens? You get dazzled into thinking that going into our industry is cool and quirky because I can go to work in my sneakers and my jeans. And then I get put under pressure to deliver on the very top thing that's on an income statement. And guess what? You ain't ready to do that. And that's what's happening. The pressure you're feeling in your industry and in your own jobs and in the positions that you're trying to fulfill is that cascading effect into your life. The only way that you're going to succeed in that world is to begin to understand how to index back into it. What am I going to have to do to make that thing a reality? And you're starting to see fewer and fewer and fewer agency people who look like me. Jeans, sneakers, and T-shirts, or look like all of you now that I look around the room. You won't see anywhere in that shirt. Yeah. So what does that mean? How does this play out for you, right? I still like the fact that I go to work with all these interesting, quirky people who come from different backgrounds and have / /. I can do anything if you just put me in the right room, I can crush it. Except that market's changing. So we have to recognize that it is, and we have to do something about it, okay? So that's the one premise. The second premise is, and you've all heard this horrible phrase, I don't like the phrase, but I understand what it implies, is the fourth industrial revolution is coming to take your job, right? Have you all heard that? Yeah. What a load of bullshit, right? It's definitely coming. There are going to be things that are going to do the jobs that you do today. Hallelujah. If I could give up half the things I do every day to a machine, I would do it in a heartbeat. Why wouldn't I? I'd be mad not to. How many of you feel okay about doing a task that a machine is capable of doing, yet someone leaves you to do it? Think about that. Exactly. Think about mowing your lawn, washing your clothes, making your toast. All those jobs are done by a machine. Why shouldn't the mundane, routine, everyday things that are in your jobs be done by machines? But what are those machines look like in your jobs? What are they? If you're a professional videographer or photographer, I can do your job. Why? Because the machine's getting better and better and better to be able to do it. So now how do you index against that? How do you compete against me doing this? I shoot videos every single day and publish them every single day. I don't need the skills that that talented chap has. Why does the marketplace need your skills if a machine can do it? If a bot can do your job, why do you still have your job? Okay, now we're getting into why. And that's actually the interesting thing. And that's what you guys have got to start working out, is that really good marketing people are going to be the Damon Albarn of the times. It doesn't matter what instrument you're playing. It doesn't matter where the music is released. It's whether or not you're contextual in the marketplace you're doing the work in. Okay. So when people come and apply to jobs in my business, that's why I hire the young talent like Merv, is not so much about what they do. It's about the effect they create when they do it. Okay. And it's bloody difficult, right? It's extremely hard to get right. And it's becoming more difficult to do. So what's happening? Companies and consultants and techies and engineers are working out to going, actually, that stuff is the same over and over and over and over and over and over and over. So if we create it in a way that we just have to toggle the switches at the beginning, that it steers off in a different direction. You'll know it as programmatic advertising or algorithms or bots. All those things are doing is they've worked out where the friction is and they're taking it out. If you're a customer or a brand manager and you can get at that outcome using a bot faster than you can by using a group of young people working in an agency, which path would you walk? I would expect them to go down a route of bots. It makes sense. It's easy. It's fast. It's predictable. It's cost effective. That's the world we play in today. So as young marketers, we have to understand that this fourth industrial revolution thing is a real thing. It's not some quirky thing that's thrown around town. But it's not a difficulty. It's a strength. It's freeing you up from doing that routine, repetitive work. And it's allowing what you're really good at to rise to the surface. But that goes back to what you said just now about what is your purpose? What are you doing that can rise to the surface, that someone will allow you to stand out in the crowd and say, that's the thing I should be doing. That's the young person I should be hiring, because they get it and they can apply it on the platforms that are moving underneath their feet all the time. Okay, so I'm going to show you a couple of examples that allow you to do this, but I like to say that you can't change the waves. You can just learn to surf. Okay, so if bots are the way to go, and I'm not an advocate for bots, right? I think before you all think I'm off on a tangent about your jobs are redundant and go and work out to build bots. I don't think they are. But if you can use a bot to save you time, then do it. Why wouldn't you? It's crazy not to. You should be doing it all the time. It's insane. Imagine how I had to build my personal brand 30 years ago. There was no social media. Actually, I go even further than that. There was no internet. There was no Facebook. There was no email. How did you build your brand? You built your brand with handshakes, one person at a time, one room at a time. How archaic is that? Oh my God. You know, if you can manage to meet 3 people a week, multiply, you've met 12 people a month, you're lucky if you've met 100 people a year. You guys can index 100 people a minute. A minute. But so can everybody else. So what makes you different? The platforms aren't making you different. The tools aren't making you different. The communities are where you're going to make a difference. How you engage with the people you work with is going to make the difference. So your desire to focus on mastery as your purpose defines the community you want to communicate with. So now the platforms become just the thing, right? It's just how you choose to talk to those people. You're heading back down to PE. There's a community, a network of people you need to influence to be successful in your industry down there. You've got to work out who they are, and you've got to over-index against them. How are you going to do that every single day? You can't do it one handshake at a time. You still need handshakes, right? The best connections you've got are handshakes. But you've still got to be where the people's thumbs are. So you've got that tool. How do you double down on that thing? How do you use that platform? Okay. So to me, I think the fourth industrial revolution, for whatever that definition is, I think it's a spectacularly good thing for us to have. I wouldn't shy away from it. If anything, I would dive deeper into it. I would work out what's in there that's going to take away the redundancy parts of your job, and are going to allow you to take whatever's really good at, what you're really good at, and amplify that stuff. Bring that stuff up to the surface. So use the tools. Why wouldn't you? You'd be crazy. So here's the irony, and here's what I want to position with you guys. Is I think marketing has gone full circle thanks to technology. When we first started out in these industries, it was about understanding people and how we could influence them. And we used newspapers, radios, television, things like that to do it. Then all the platforms came along and machines started talking to you, right? That fourth industrial revolution thing started to happen. Now what's starting to happen? You look at your phone and you know when that message has been sent to you by a machine or whether there's a human being behind it who's actually talking to you. You know better than I know, right? You've got a subtlety that just goes, and you just have to do this, tick, 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 tick. So all that marketing work that's been done to you, you're just batting it out the way like this. Because you understand it, because it's not a person talking to you. You're not connected to that messaging. It's getting better and better and better and better because people are working out how to flick that stuff aside. So what's happening? Automated marketing, which I happen to be an advocate for, I like it, I use it in my own business, has become so efficient, listen to this carefully, that it no longer works. Marketing has become so good that it doesn't work anymore because it's become mechanical. It's become so efficient. And it's lost its kind of effervescence. It's lost its cool factor. It's lost its humanness. That's why a disabled guy who cannot speak can win a joke competition, because it's not linear. It's not predictable. It's not a straight line. It's largely irrational. It doesn't make sense. You don't make decisions based on rationality. Is it rational to get up and go to an event in a pair of pink pants and a bright yellow shirt? Yes. Exactly, right? But if you went to an algorithm, it would go, no. Contemporary society says that you should wear jeans, sneakers, and a sweatshirt, and you should be, that's how you fit in the mold. That's going to be the person that's going to fit in the most or stand out the most, because that's contemporary understood. And guess what? The one person in the room who didn't fit that mold is now standing out in the crowd. Okay? Excuse me for using you as an example, but you gave me a wonderful... Nico's shirt, however, is a very bad attempt at standing out in the crowd. So what am I trying to premise? I'm trying to premise to say that even though the numbers say a thing, it's not always the thing. And that's going to be your strength. Okay, you need to look beyond the obvious, and you need to find the truth that's in that thing, and you need to pull it out and crack it open. Okay, and how difficult is that? How are you going to do that in retail marketing? How are you going to do it in advertising or creative? How are you going to do it as a photographer? How are you going to do it to the youth marketplace? That's the thing that's going to make you pop. That's going to be the thing that makes you different. Everybody else is rushing to the middle. Okay, why are they rushing to the middle? Okay, and this is where it's starting to be the toughest time of ever to marketing. It's because budgets are tight, timeframes are tight, results need to be guaranteed, platforms are becoming common. Everybody's going to the same place. They're all looking at the same data. Think about how your banks advertise to you. Close your eyes and imagine any of the big 5 banks, and I'm going to include Capitec in that now because they're now starting to average out their marketing campaigns. They're starting to look and feel like all the other banks. You can close your eyes and you can all picture the scene, right? The family driving the car, the little girl off to school, the proud daddy, saying goodbye to the family on his way to work. Why? They're all looking at the same data set. They're all looking at the same process. They're all looking at the jeans and sneakers. The ones that are going to pop are going to be the ones that choose to step out of that model, who ignore the data, keep it relevant, reference it, and index on other things. Okay? And that's actually your power. It's because you're connected to the issues that I am not. It's because you know and understand what your purpose is. It's because you know and understand how your marketplace is going to react to those things that I don't understand, that you can influence those conversations. Okay? I was talking to Merv earlier. The best moments in my day in the office are when my staff tell me I'm wrong. Okay? You'll be a brave person to tell your boss he's wrong, right? Go back to South Point and tell them they're wrong. In turn, don't tell the guys in Braamfontein they're wrong. Okay? And here's why. But here's the discipline. If you haven't done the homework, you do not have the right to be different. If you haven't looked at the data and made a decision based on what the other guys are looking at, you're wrong. You don't have that privilege. And that's the disconnect between what I think young marketing professionals do today versus what you should be doing in 3 to 5 years' time. So Nico asked me in our little pre-interview about what are the things that young people need to consider. And the biggest thing I think is patience, is that you all want to get going, right? So I love hearing young people starting their own agencies or their own businesses. But I have to tell you, it's going to be the hardest journey you've ever been on because of all the shortcomings that you're against because of time. And what I don't think is enough of is that approach that a young lawyer would be taking of saying, I've got to build my career over a 10-year period to get before I'm actually called a lawyer. Marketers don't. Marketers go and do a 6-month course at Damlin and claim, and then put it on the Instagram account. I'm a marketer. Just for the record, everything that's on my Instagram account I've actually done, right? The word entrepreneur is there because I fucking make money from business, okay? I'm not trying to be an entrepreneur. I am an entrepreneur. So don't con the game because the game will con you back. It'll catch you. And it will catch you in marketing desks as well, okay? So, and I'm not saying you shouldn't start. I'm just saying don't try and blow up what you don't have. Go in with what you have, and if purpose is your thing and you have an ability to bring people to be better versions of themselves, then do that thing to master that thing if mastery is your thing. But don't reach beyond until you've got that thing in hand. Can you imagine going to a young lawyer and asking a young lawyer to argue your case to save your life? You don't want that young guy, man. You want that old grey guy who's argued that case 1,000 freaking times. Okay. And that's the difference. We don't, as marketers, see ourselves as professionals. We define ourselves by other things. The cool shoes we wear, the cool events we go to where we get birds for having done cool work from someone else who did some cool work. I've never won a Lurie Award. I think I've done work that it's worthy of it, but I've never entered the awards. I don't like them. I think they over-index the wrong things. So what I'm trying to leave you is really focus on those two examples of marketing professionals need to build 10-year careers. You've got to learn and learn and manipulate and learn and manipulate and try and manipulate. Don't strut, don't pose. Really know the craft that you're about to work in. Okay, so I started to think about what can you guys begin to think about? What's in you? So I changed the name of my talk to Get Your Shift Together. You need to shift gears. You need to stop seeing it as a fun, quirky industry. It is. It has plenty of that stuff in it. And you need to build a profession in this industry. Really go about it like it's not a side hustle. It's not a fun thing. Grind out the hours. Nico and I were talking that, I don't know if you guys live like we do, but I'm out of bed at 4 o'clock in the morning. And this is not something where you've got to go, geez, I'm sleeping too many hours. That's not the thing. Have you seen that talk from Arnold Schwarzenegger that says, sleep faster, right? Just sleep faster. I use the first 3 hours of my day from 4 o'clock in the morning to about 7 o'clock in the morning. It's work time for me, right? It's grind time for me. I get up, I finish in the evenings. I put some hours in the evenings. Not that you have to do this stuff, but just I'm 49 years old and I'm still grinding to make sure I'm at the edge of what this stuff is about. And you guys are just about to get into it. So there's a lot of stuff that you need to do. Okay. I'm only really coming to terms with this stuff, and I wish I'd understood it when I was your age. Kind of in retrospect, looking back at it. For the first part of my career, I was kind of an autopilot. I was just following whatever someone was telling me to do because it was put in front of me to do. I would answer the next brief, I would do the next job, I would action the thing, and I was just chipping away, right? I was just kind of turning up at work and banking the pay slip and making sure I could play football on the weekends and go out for some drinks. And then when I decided to start my own business and do it myself, this is my third business, right? My first two failed. I was unsuccessful in running my first two. Only then did I start going, actually, it's not about what you do, it's about what you build. It's what you create. It's what you make happen. And what you do every day doesn't matter. It becomes irrelevant. Can you remember what you did last week? What you did last month? You probably can't. Okay, I'll give you a good example of what it means in my industry. Do you remember the gifts you got for your birthday? Or do you remember the parties you had with your people? What was more memorable? Parties, right? The people. The stuff was just stuff. Unless it was an iconic thing like a car on your 18th birthday or an overseas holiday or something. But generally those things blur. But what you'll always remember are the moments. And those are the things you actually have to find in your career. Every day you're going to grind. Okay? You've got to find the stuff that's going to pop. Okay? Let me give you some perspective. And I'm going to take you from being 20 to 30 young people, and I'm going to put you in your job when you're 45. Depending on what you aspire to be. So you're going to go down to one of two paths, I assume. You're either going to run an agency, like you guys are trying to do, and your agency will grow and be successful, or you're going to go into an environment where you manage and look after a brand, and you're going to walk the corporate marketing ladder. Where do you end up? Okay. One day you're an agency boss, or one day you're a chief marketing officer in an organization. Chief marketing officers today, first of all, there wasn't a chief marketing officer around 10 years ago. Marketing wasn't at the executive desks. The most important people in the company are the board, right? The guys who run and drive the strategy and direction of that board. And what's happened is they've started to look around and go, actually, we need marketing people at this desk because our revenue numbers need to be boosted. Our sales need to be boosted. Really smart businesses did that 20 years ago. Apple, Amazon, Google. They started to work out that what happens out there happens in here. So you could stop. They started to go, we need marketing people at the board. So they reached out and they started to pull marketing people up the executive level, and now they sit at board level. But what happened? Those people can't succeed because they haven't walked the same path that those other guys have walked to get to that desk. So by the time they get there, they're actually underskilled. They're under-resourced to do the job, but they're under the same pressure that those other executive teams have got. They also haven't walked a path where they've got all the support organizations that help them. If you arrived at an executive desk, you've probably had audit firms and companies and consultings and the KPMGs and the Deloittes help you get there. But if you've come from a marketing path, you don't. You've worked at an agency, or you might have PR companies or support organizations or research companies, but you haven't been taught how to be an executive. You've been taught how to be a marketer. So there's a disconnect. So marketing's been pulled up and it isn't working. And now they're being pushed away again. And guess who's being pulled in the room to replace them? Accountants, consultants, guys, technologists, engineers, data scientists. Because they're looking at marketing and going, oh, these crazy people with their cool shoes and pink pants. They're fun to have in the room, but actually they can't deliver. So let's find someone else who can deliver on that stuff. Get those consulting guys, go to the Deloitte guys and bring them in here and let them have a look at the problem and see if they can solve the problem. And guess what's happened? The creative types like us, the irrationals in our pink pants and yellow shirts, have been moved out of the way so that the machinery can move in. That's what's happened. Your industrial revolution stuff is happening. If you don't believe it, it's happening every single day. The average tenure of a CMO is 2.5 years. The time that person has in that job. Okay, and they leave for one of two reasons, predominantly leave for one of two reasons. They either leave because they're underskilled and they can't handle the job, or they live just long enough to get their campaigns and things up and running, and then they jump into the next job because people are looking for their skills all the time. So they leave before the campaign has actually created traction. And often they're leaving behind broken campaigns that didn't work. And their reputations then get damaged. And then the next person steps up into the role. So when I said you've got a 10-year career to being successful in your job, that's the mindset I think you need to think about. You're not sitting here imagining yourselves at a boardroom table in a big organization, right? That's not the job. That's not what you set out to do. But that's the mindset you need to embed in yourself to succeed in this industry in the future. It's changing every single day, okay? Cool. I'm bringing you all down here, and that wasn't my goal. I have to tell you, though, the accountants are doing a very good job of marketing. They're doing a bloody good job. But guess what they're doing? All going to the same place. That irrational person in the room is the one you want in there now. It's why Apple bought Dre headsets. Remember the headphones? Beats by Dre? Beats by Dre is not the best headset in the country or the world. Sony make them better. Bang & Olufsen make them better. Why did they buy Dre's headsets? Because he knows how to connect to the people who are listening to them. He's the worst guy to buy a headset from. He's not Japanese. He's never been inside a marketing factory. He doesn't know the technology behind the device. He doesn't know any of that stuff. Oh, he does now, but maybe we're being indiscreet to him. But that's not why Apple bought them. They bought him because he was the odd one in the crowd. And guess what Apple did with it? They launched their music streaming business on the back of it. What's happened with Apple's music streaming business? What's happening to revenue lines at Apple? Okay, that's the model, right? And it's easy to quote Apple, biggest business in the world, da, da, da. What are you going to do when you go back to your desk on Monday morning and you're a retail marketing thing and you're under pressure? And your boss says, we've got to get the next campaign out. We've got to fill the spaces. We don't have enough tenants in this building. We've got to go. And you tell him, Beats by Dre. He's going to go, nah. Phone that accountant quickly because that guy gets it. That's the job, okay? So try to bring it back to your perspective. That's what you've got to be thinking all the time. And it's easy to shirk this thing because it feels like it's in 10 years' time or 15 years' time. If you're running your agencies, it's today. It's every single day. That's how your customers are going to be making decisions on you. They're going to buy you because of how you responded to a brief. They're going to keep buying you because of the results you generate for them, okay? And eventually the brief will change. It'll start going in your direction because you've taken it there. But your first brief from your first client is going to be to the middle because everybody else is looking at exactly the same thing, okay? It's hard, okay? Very, very hard, okay? So I like to think of marketing more as a discipline than anything else, okay? Right, so I've given you a hard time about now how deep and dark and miserable this industry is going to be. It's actually not. And I want to show you that if you look at the things properly and you find the opportunities, that you can exponentially scale something. So I've chosen two examples that have got nothing to do with South Africa and have got nothing to do with the businesses that you're in. They index into my industry because I do these kinds of things. And I want to show you how two things have changed that will fundamentally, hopefully, give you some perspective. So do you all know this geeky little accountant? Okay, he's clearly not an accountant, right? So Ed Sheeran. So you can read that in your own time, but I'll pick out the highlights. Firstly, he's just finished. It's just finished now. A 2.5-year tour, okay, that took him around the world. It's the highest grossing tour in the world. Okay, go back to revenue numbers. We're talking about the top number one thing, right? This nerdy little ginger bloke with his glasses is the highest performing live music act in the world. Bigger than any hip-hop group, bigger than any South African artist. He could fill FNB Stadium every weekend. Okay, look at the numbers. It's much easier if you convert it into rands. 11 billion rand generated from that one guy. Okay, but why? Every band goes on tour. What's changed? What was the thing that indexed for him? 2.5 years. So think of the grind, right? 255 shows or something. He's traveled to 43 countries. Imagine the grind of that. Imagine getting up and going, oh, where am I today? Moscow. Okay, cool. Let's do it. Put the guitar on, click, go. Click, go. Click, go. You think your job's mundane and routine and think of that. Every time he's got a show, he can't like walk in and go, oh, I'm feeling a bit blue today. Let's just get through this. Chung, cheers, I'm out of here. How do you think that would wrap? No ways. 255 shows like this. 43 different countries like this. It's still not what changed it because there are plenty of other hard-working bands out there. You know what they did? They worked out how music has changed. How do you buy music today? You don't buy it in a record store anymore with an album. He doesn't make his money from album sales. He makes his money from shows. He uses his album to promote his show. Music used to be, you went on tour to promote your album. Someone bought a physical thing from you, and the number of physical things was what you did. So musicians could be lazy. Go into the studio, record a great album, publish the album, someone would finance you. You do a couple of promotional shows to get the noise up, and then you go, cool, watch my album sell. I'm going to go and do cocaine. That's not how this thing worked. This thing worked is, I'm going to give my music away for free. And then I'm going to go get my money back. Okay? That's backslash. You're giving away your talent for free now. You're going to work out how to commoditize it later. How you're going to get your money back for your talent later. I just want to remind you, Ed Sheeran's a single guy on the stage, right? Him and his guitar. It's not a whole, you know. So he does have a big stage set, right? But it's not like he has dancers and there's a whole performing. It's one guy and his guitar, and he's the #1 selling live act in the world. What can you do that'll make 11 billion rand? I don't have any talent that can make 11 billion rand. He does. Okay. The trick for me though is how he saw the thing change. What's changing in your worlds that could get that exponential opportunity? And are you ready enough to brave and dive into it and find the numbers? Okay. He didn't commit to a 255 site tour. Look, I've never met the guy and I'm making a big assumption, right? But the understanding here is the model's changed. He's doing the hard work in the new model and he's winning. Imagine if you could have put 1 rand of your marketing budget behind every 1 minute he was on the stage. Your marketing return would be exponentially bigger than anything. He was live in front of 8.5 million people. Never mind how it's indexed on YouTube, ticketing sales, buy my ticket, that number of touch points between I know the show's coming, I buy my ticket, I buy my merchandise, I post it on social media, I'm at the live event, look how cool my Instagram account is, I can't believe how cool this guy is. Oh, what a great day, great experience I had. By 8.5 million people across 43 countries. Just sketch out the marketing value of that as a revenue line in your job. That guy single-handedly changed his revenue model like this. But he did it over 2.5 years. Okay. Example 1. Example 2. I don't know if you know who this guy is. You probably don't.
Yeah, I know him.
Good. Do you guys know who he is? Do you know what Fortnite is? Do you guys play Fortnite? Do you know the computer game Fortnite? So Fortnite, he won the solo category of the first ever Fortnite World Cup. Now, if you haven't seen this, they played in a soccer stadium. And it has 100,000 people who come and sit and watch kids play computer games. Okay? Funny, hey? Now, hang on a sec. Let's dial this back a little bit. Fortnite is the biggest consumer game in the world. There are more people online playing computer games at the same time than any other thing. More than on television, more than on radio, more than on social media. There are more people on that thing than any other platform. And it's live. Okay, so you're playing against each other. Okay, so just think about that. Where would you put your dollars today? I'm not saying go to your boss and tell him that he must now sponsor Fortnite for retail exercises. But it's changing, right? So also let me put this in context. He's 16 years old. I got a 16-year-old daughter. If she came home with a 45 million rand prize, she could play computer games every day. Forget about going to school or university. Just I'm gonna get her a fridge and whatever. Just go. Okay, it's changed now. He's a professional gamer now. He's 16 years old. His job is to play computer games. But $3 million. Let me put that in perspective for you. Tiger Woods won the US Masters this year. You all know who Tiger Woods is. Most difficult golf tournament in the world. His winning purse was $2 million. $2 million. This kid just won 3, playing a computer game. Okay. I was in New York last year. I went to a conference around sports and how the digital world and sports are connecting to one another. And the guys from Fortnite were guests and they were speaking at this thing. Their marketing spend, the volume of marketing content they push out to keep the kids in the gaming community staying on their platform, because there are other platforms that are trying to steal you away to go and play on their games, they pretty much produce a TV commercial a day. Now, if you think about your ad agency business or your marketing business, how many campaigns are you running for a client in a year? Maybe a quarterly campaign, maybe if it's a big campaign every 6 months, or maybe it's around a particular thing like Women's Day. These guys are doing a campaign a day. A day. They've got internal marketing teams that are producing this work every single day. It references yesterday. It engages the data that they get overnight on social media and the stats they can see in their game. And the very next day they put out a TV commercial that's contextualized on yesterday. And they're going to do it again the next day and again the next day and again the next day. How are you ever going to beat that guy? That's Beats by Dre for Apple. Okay, so I've given you two very weird examples, and then I'm going to give you one more. Have you guys watched this? It's a great hack on Netflix. It's all about how they used. So firstly, I think it's a shit documentary. I don't like documentaries like this. It's very one-sided. But the basic premise was that they were able to manipulate the American elections. Do you remember our Bell Pottingers? We chased them out of the country because they made us look like racists and we hated each other because the Facebook was starting to share horrible videos of each other. They did exactly the same thing in the United States. But here's what they did. So they demonized, if you watch the show, they demonize the platforms. They make Facebook the evil enemy. And actually, Facebook's not the enemy, it's just the platform. It's how you use it. And what they did is Cambridge Analytica looked at the United States and said, we can't influence everybody, but we just have to find a few places that we can over-influence to flip that vote over. If you remember, Trump only just won the national elections, right? He just clicked over. And what they did is they used human behavior and the data, and they found people who were easily manipulated, and then they pushed racist content at them and stimulated the sharing of that racist content in a few very isolated pockets of opportunity. They went to the data and they went to human behavior and they influenced a certain number of people and they clicked it over. That's simply what they did. But that's also our opportunity, right? I'm not saying go out and put racist content on the internet. That's not what I mean. But that's the job. Find out who influences something, find out what content you can give them that will over-index that stuff, and then use that to flip it over. And that's all you're doing. How do you find more tenants in a retail store? You've got to find the right people you think are going. You can go and find them on the internet today. They're there. They told you what they want. You can go and find them. Give them the right content. Bring them closer to you. Convert them. It's out there. I'd go and watch this just from a point of view to see how our industry can be made out to be evil. And then this is possibly the most important slide I can show you, and then I'm going to shut up so you can ask me some questions. This is what it used to be. You used to have to be very creative. You used to have to be very sharp in your craft, and you used to have some context. Now you still need some creativity. Craft is still important. You can't do your job without the skill sets that you need. But context is completely relevant. I gave you two examples of Ed Sheeran and the young guy who won the award. That stuff's important. You've got to be here. You guys have got more of this than I do. I'm going to have more of this than you'll ever have. But this, I can't buy it. I can't find it. And if you think it's only something that happens right out there, check that. There's zero creativity in how that text was created on that shirt. There's no craft to that. It's easy to put words on a t-shirt, right? It didn't take any particular skill to do that. But the context of what that says, I had to go and ask my office what that says. I'm not going to pretend I knew what that says. And then even when I did understand what it said, I said, I still don't understand. And when the young guy came over and he said, that's the context. The words are not. Okay. Doesn't have to be big creative. It doesn't have to have big craft to be able to execute a very clever campaign that's in context. And that's the job. The problem is you get paid to be a creative, or you get paid to be a copywriter. So you can write words, or you create pretty visuals, or you're determined to do a photo scene in a banking ad of a family in a car, and it gets zero indexing. That's the job. That's what you guys have got to be able to do. This confirms for me that marketing has gone full circle. We are back to where it's about knowing how people connect to things and then working out how to aggregate everything to get at that stuff. Okay. Make sure in every conversation you're having, you're considering how your circle has become back to the beginning and the people that you're trying to communicate to are in full focus. Okay. And then I'll leave it at that.